Once again, I want to thank Victoria for being here with us today, and we are very happy to have you from Ukraine here. And I know this was very tough road to come here to Kosovo, so we are glad to have you here in Kosovo. And I know that there are many things that we can learn from the example of Ukraine and that we can compare for the general in Western Balkans, but specifically in Kosovo. I do remember yesterday he was talking about how Russia actually is seeing the Western Balkans, and he was mentioning that for Russia it's just like Europe. So while trying to tackle or to increase the influence in the Western Balkan countries, actually trying to increase the influence in Europe, and actually also to damage the reputation of the Europe in general. So I think it's very important the point that you have made. If you can elaborate this more for our audience that didn't participate in our conversation yesterday, but specifically I want you to focus a little bit what parallels can be drawn between the tactics that Russia is using in Ukraine and those in the Western Balkans, at least what we can learn in the Western Balkans. Thank you.
Thank you, Adelina. First of all, thank you for Kosovo Center for Security Studies for inviting me here. Thank you for Konrad Adenauer Foundation for support of my participation here. And actually, it's my second time in Kosovo. First time it was in April, and I'm happy to stay here, enjoyed my time here. So I think it's a good trend to be here more and more, actually, for Ukrainian representatives. So really, Russia is driven by security reasons. Economic is also present, but security is the main reason for them. Their main goal is to have gray zones and hotspots in Europe to control and to destabilize situation. Russia is governed by former or current intelligence and security representatives, and these security guys, intelligence guys, are infiltrated in a lot of civic agencies and institutions. Being full of such people inside and actually following such concept, Russia likes the concept of plausible deniability. So in each situation, they can say that it was not me, it was not Russia. Actually, it could be Russian proxies, it could be Russian satellites, it could be different entities, it could be different NGOs, it could be even particular members of parliament that could taste the water, that could use propaganda, that could use disinformation. By the way, we need to make a changes between propaganda and disinformation, because if we are talking about disinformation, it's false. If we are talking about propaganda, it's about different narratives of different situations and describing different situations with such narratives. So Russia used all such tools not to be blind on some criminals, some crimes on the international arena. So actually, Russia is trying to find friends in Europe. So such friends could be seen, Serbia could be seen like such friends, like close such friends. But we discussed yesterday with Adelina that Serbia could look like Belarus before 2022. So it's like some EU priorities and some Russian ties. But we can see that that we have with Belarus now. So it could be some dangerous situation for Serbia too. During this, I don't know, probably 15, 20 years, Ukraine became an arena of testing all Russian possible non-military instruments in different areas, in information, economic, political. It could be a lot of experience that could be shared with Western Balkans from Ukrainian context. And actually Russia used not only in Ukraine, but within all the targeted countries that it want to make fragile, the concept of external intervention. So this internal intervention could be based on 5 components. So it's single nation, single religion, single language, single or familiar culture, and single state or foreign state. If we are talking about the concept of Russian world, I think you heard a lot and know more than me about the same concept in Serbia, for example, or familiar concept in Serbia. So this concept is based on the 3 components. It's about culture, subculture, and history. And you can find even now, during last year, different examples from Serbia context or from Kosovo context when Russia used such approaches, such examples. For example, they have the special control by authorities like movement of night wolves, ночные волки. And they visited Serbia for several times. They visited Republika Srpska for several times. And the last time they put in their Telegram channel that like Kosovo is like Borodino battle or Borodino line during the war in the 19th century. So like a common history. They like this case of victory during the World War II. They like this case of religion and church. For example, when there was a protest of Christians in Serbia, the protest was in charge by Ukrainian representative of Moscow Patriarchate. It's Anufri, priest Anufri, that was from Ukraine in Serbia with, no, not Serbia, sorry, in Montenegro, with such movement of protest with people. Actually, we can find a lot of other experience that can be used from Ukraine in Western Balkans country. Now it's on top point is the issue of disinformation. You know that in April it was established the school, media school, established by the one of the leader of military correspondents in the war in Ukraine, in a special military operation like Russia calls them in Ukraine. His name, like nickname is Rybar. So this man established the media school in Serbia. He is very efficient in Telegram channel, in such networking. So we can understand what could be the next if we have such media school in Serbia. Because as for now, Telegram is not very popular here, but in Ukraine, in Russia, in post-Soviet country, Telegram is the main source of influence. If we are talking about YouTube, for example, now it's forbidden in Russia. It doesn't work in Russia. But for example, in other media, other media could be used here, established by Russia or supported financially by Russia or with some ties from Russia. For example, Russian media in Serbia is about Serbia in Russian language, о Сербии по-русски. So for what? For what reason? Can we imagine that ordinary Russians is interested in the situation in Serbia naturally? I think no. Or for example, in 2019, they filmed together with Serbia a movie like a Balkans Line. It's like a very great, like Hollywood level movie about the war in Kosovo. So again, for whom? Another example, Russian rock star Kipelov was in Serbia, and actually he had a song about Kosovo Pole. He presented in 2015, and then he was this song in Serbia in 2021. And the song was like on the screen with Serbian subtitles. Again, for whom and why? So actually we see it like a justification of intervention. So Russia prepared their population for a long time that what is Ukraine? Which land is Ukraine? What is the interest of Russia in Ukraine? The same situation could be seen here in Western Balkans. So gray zone for NATO, EU, between NATO, EU, and hotspot to destabilize. And we discussed yesterday with Adelina that actually international partners usually see our regions like a separate regions with separate program. Maybe some cross-cutting issues with EU integration or cooperation with NATO. For example, it could be Western Balkans, it could be Eastern Europe, it could be South Europe. But Russia doesn't see it like a separation. It uses every time the same method, tools, or something familiar. It has a very great machinery and very big apparatus to influence on all of this situation. You know about Россотрудничество. 80 countries with 96 offices throughout the world, even in Albania, even in Bulgaria, still close to Russian embassies, for example. They have a very good network of churches and some religious organizations. They have NGOs. For example, when we have an election in Ukraine, in 2010, they have a very big network of NGO, including Cossacks NGO, some cultural NGO, that covered all the manipulation and propaganda and disinformation activities in Ukraine, with budget, with secretariat. They use the issue of compatriots. And by the way, even when we talk about religion, yesterday we discussed it with Adelina, We have Crimean Peninsula, now occupied by Russian in Ukraine. And we have their Muslim populations, Crimean Tatars. Some of them left the territory and moved to the controlled territory. Some of them stayed there. But the imams who support Ukraine left that territory after occupation, for example. But at the same time, Russia constructed new mosques. Russia invited new imams. Russia invited new religious leaders. So if you don't want Orthodox Church, Christian Church, okay, we can build you a mosque. So they could be very flexible in their means and methods, and they can use everything like a machinery to influence. And Russia is a revanchist state, and it's wanted to be again a great power in multipolar world, but great power. So I think I can stay here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Victoria. I think we're going to have a time you to elaborate further if you have anything to point it out. So we can start from here. Yeah, if you can introduce yourself. And to whom you are posing the question, please.
Hello, Marko Savkovic from ISEC Fund. Excellent presentations, excellent panel. I have two questions. One question is for Stefan, and the other question is for a colleague from Ukraine. And on Telegram. And I noticed in Serbia that there is this prevalence when it comes to learning more. And unfortunately and tragically, people in Serbia are still fascinated by the conflict. They are not only interested, I mean, this is a kind of fascination almost that sometimes is very difficult for me to comprehend. And Telegram is apparently, it's not a social network I use, so I am not versed in it, but it's definitely a source of choice for many people. Do you see this as organic? Or do you think it's actively encouraged by Russia in any way? Thank you.
So talking about Telegram, actually it's not like a total evil. It could be very useful, and it was very useful and still very useful. For example, for Ukrainians when we need to have information rapidly. For example, we have air defense alerts. We have some need to crisis response, we have to disseminate some information, and Telegram could be used. But at the same time, it could be used for different malign activities and disinformation. Actually, Telegram does not need such requirements for registration. It does not need such, in comparison with websites, for example, it does not need such requirements for administration, for maintenance it. And it's a very flexible tool, and we believe, and actually our intelligence, Ukrainian intelligence, believes that Russia supports Telegram again covertly. So again, this issue of plausible deniability, so we can say every time that it was not Russia. And actually, I think it's an issue of time to go in this market, I mean in the Western Balkan market with Telegram, because it depends on knowledge of language, knowledge of root causes, knowledge of some gaps, weaknesses in the community, in the targeted country. That's why if they open such, as I mentioned, like a media school, it means that was a request, that was some preparation, that was some research. Actually, in non-military operation, nothing starts without preparation. So everything was checked before. And it's just the issue of time to widespread this tool on influence on the targeted country, to make some influence, to become fragile, to make some state fragile, etc.
Thank you very much, Victoria. Yes, please.
Oh.
Okay, so you have your mic, so...
I already have it. Yeah, sorry, I am addicted to asking questions. So I'm Uroš from the European movement in Serbia, as most of you know. So as someone who follows Serbian, Russian, and Hungarian press daily, well, even with my limited Hungarian, I'm part of the camp that Jeta mentioned that believes that propaganda is understated, and there's a lot more of it than we think we know, and it's increased, especially after the illegal invasion of Ukraine. So we don't just have RT and Sputnik, which are official basic Kremlin propaganda. Even Politika, our daily newspaper, our newspaper of record, is very pro-Russian. So, and of course, their goal is not peace, like it is for the EU and our friends from the US. They're very anti-peace, if I can say. So my question is very simple. What can civil society do in the Western Balkans to counter Russian propaganda and warmongering? And how can the EU help with that? So, and it's for Jeta and Victoria. Thank you. Shene Merla.
Can we get, Victoria, once again, we really appreciate your presence here. So just for your experience, your takeaways from the panel today, what would be your recommendation for us in the region to increase our resilience towards the Russian influence particularly?
I would like to combine the answers on your question and the question from the audience about propaganda, etc. Actually, this issue of disinformation propaganda is an issue of hybrid warfare. So, non-military methods, we recognize it that we need to react. And actually, we should see it like a comprehensive picture, because to react on it, the state should understand their own vulnerabilities, the vulnerabilities of population, should understand why something is done or what is the purpose of such, influence operation, what's the machinery that could be used by the external actor to influence on some target group or some area. And to create the capable NGOs, capable state authorities, and to create this coordination between them. Actually, from Ukrainian experience, our authorities, not only civilian ones, but intelligence, security sector authorities, became more closer to civilian population. We have very good cooperation with them. And even now, countering some hybrid threats, we can go ahead. For example, if it comes from disinformation campaign from Russia, sometimes our centers of excellence, sometimes our NGO get ahead something. And actually we have a strong, wide announcement that something is coming from Russia. Be ready to it. And by the way, such Telegram channels in this situation plays good role in some cases. We use a very good internal sanction policy, again with different media sources. We use a code of ethics for journalists. Our journalists cooperate closely with our authorities, again some security sector authorities and Ministry of Culture and Information, for example. So collaboration, capacity building, and understanding the reason of doing something from external actors to be effective in countering these activities.